This is reality TV that works. Startups, made in Kansas City.
Here we have a set of entrepreneurs today that are mapping out their strategy for the growth cycle in this quarter and using it at our open coffee bar, which any entrepreneur will tell you the coffee is an essential part of every entrepreneur's life these days. My partner Herb and I, when we first started this, really our ultimate goal was we had started companies on our own and we'd struggled at different times in our lives in starting these companies, and we wanted a resource that we would have wanted when we started our first company.
We started the place where entrepreneurs can walk in with an idea and walk out with a company.
Herb came to me one day and asked, what was your biggest challenge in starting a business? And I said, my biggest challenge was I had no idea what I was doing. I had no clue. I'd walked out of the practice of law with an idea and had never been involved in starting a business before. And I made 1,000 mistakes in the launch of my first company.
As entrepreneurs, we found that there are a lot of mistakes that we made, and we wanted to avoid those mistakes going forward. We wanted to surround ourselves with the best people in a place that we're excited to work, high energy level, a place where people are motivated not only by finances, but by passion.
We started to talk about an idea to be that resource. It seemed like something that was missing, not just in Kansas City, but in a lot of communities around the country. A real roll up your sleeves, get down, involved in the business and work with those individuals to allow them to achieve their potential.
One of the principles that Think Big Partners is built on was we want to find a way to accelerate ideas. Accelerating ideas means that you're going to work at a very high cadence, be very disciplined in your milestones, understand what you're trying to achieve, and knowing most importantly that you're going to fail at about half of what you set out to do. Knowing that you're going to rip down what you built with the best of intentions, knowing that you're going to start again.
We have an official accelerator program that allows companies that have a little bit more substance to them, they've been around for a while, get the assistance, resources, mentorship, funding that they need to really take them from an idea on the back of a cocktail napkin to a working, functioning company. And then we have an incubator that works with more well-established companies that have been around for a while but are looking for just a little bit of something to spur their growth.
There are over 1,000 incubators in the United States today, and while many of them are very good, we found that incubators, the way that we applied it, weren't agile enough. And what I mean by that is that they don't move fast enough. They're a little bit more polished. We think that Think Big Partners is a little bit more of a sausage factory. What do I mean by that is, it may not always be pretty, but we get stuff done. And that's the real grit of entrepreneurship. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that don't always adequately explain what goes into it. It sounds very glamorous, sexy, cool, and interesting, but when you miss a meal, when you sweat payroll, when you're grinding it out, wanting to pull your hair out, if you are a successful entrepreneur, you've probably felt like you're having a heart attack, or you have insomnia, or you've challenged your relationships, or all three of the above at some point in your successful entrepreneurial life.
So this is our 4th floor. It's our main floor. It's an open space designed specifically to promote collaboration among the companies that work out of here. So the idea behind Think Big is not only do you have traditional resources available to entrepreneurs, but we also have the ability for each of these companies to share with one another, to talk back and forth amongst themselves and decide what is the best way for them to reach their business goals as well as their personal goals.
So the co-working space allows people the opportunity to start, to build, to grow, to be able to solve each other's problems through entrepreneurial collaboration. And so Think Big Partners, when we built the place we wanted to work, combined incubator, accelerator, co-working space, and the right people all around us to be able to get our jobs done fast.
As these companies grow, as they continue to push themselves to be better, they're going to make mistakes from time to time. We want everybody here to be able to learn not only from their own mistakes, but from the mistakes of others. It allows them to grow and become better companies, more solid companies, and ultimately be fixtures in the Kansas City business community.
This event tonight is actually called Great Minds Think Big, and the idea is that we bring one entrepreneur of one mind, in this case an aerospace entrepreneur, Scott Tibbetts, and a different mind, Danny O'Neill from the Roastery with coffee. And even though they seem like an unlikely match, we're looking for the collaboration in the ways that they do think big together.
The biggest challenge that we have here at Think Big is sometimes we have to tell people that their baby is ugly, and this is their baby. They put their life and their blood and their sweat and their money, and oftentimes behind it. And we need to tell them that this really isn't a great idea and there isn't a viable business opportunity here. It's a difficult decision to have, but we also think it's one that we owe it to the entrepreneur, because rather than have that person spend 2 years of their lives and all of their life savings on an idea that was destined to fail, we think we're doing a service both to that individual and to the community to allow that person to pivot, to redeploy their resources and their ideas and their creative process in another way. On the 4th floor is really the area for the individual entrepreneur or the solo person who's dipping their toe in the water, figuring out where their business is going to go, whether it's a viable business model or not. And when they get to a certain level of development in their company, we then have it set up so that they will graduate to the next floor, to the 5th floor. So up here, we have some of our more established companies that have been in Think Big partners for a little bit longer. One of our very first companies that ever came through the door, Planet Reuse here.
Another company is an example of the types of companies that we tend to attract. A company called Phone to Action.
Candy Cam, one of our really high-tech, this is their little lab and toys. This is the place. I'm not allowed to touch anything or play with anything up here for fear of breaking it.
We like ideas that solve problems. We like good people that have a demonstrated track record. I'll give you an example. One of our entrepreneurs right here, Scott Tibbetts. He's with a company called Katasi.
I was working with a fellow that came up with an invention that was for hot water heaters in homes, and it was just the coolest thing. So I just started calling people up and found NASA. NASA said we can use this thing. So it was crazy. It was in a garage coming out of a hardware store and ended up on Mars. So the next venture has nothing to do with space. It's a telecom product basically. It's a device that goes in a car, and then we in the internet cloud can figure out when you're driving. And from that, we can tell the carrier, the telecom carrier, to turn off texting. So it's a way to stop texting while driving that doesn't involve anything on the phone. It all happens in partnership with the telecom carrier. I'm from Boulder, actually, Boulder, Colorado. But I made a connection here with Herb and Think Big, and there is such a strong, exciting entrepreneurial thing going on here in Kansas City that it makes sense for me to come down here and work with Think Big to help them with my next venture. So, I'm here because I need this help in taking our next venture forward.
The greatest thing about entrepreneurs is you see the enthusiasm, the excitement. They all are coming in something that they're incredibly passionate about. The idea, the business, the concept. The difficulty, as we've mentioned before, is that not all of those passions are viable businesses. I had a college roommate who his true passion was sleeping, and he was outstanding at it. He was really good. But to this day, I've never found anybody who's willing to pay him to do it. So we have a lot of companies that come through here who are extremely excited about, they're extremely passionate about what they're building, but until they get through a certain level of their business life cycle, they're not sure whether it's viable, whether it's scalable. And so when we start to identify a company, when we start to look at them, not only are we looking for the idea, was it something that people would adopt? Is it something that, lots and lots of users would take on, or you have lots and lots of customers, but more, is it something that has the ability to be sustainable? It's not a flash in the pan. It's not something, the next fad. We're not looking to develop the next pet rock program here, but we're looking for companies that will be fixtures in the Kansas City community and have the potential to be the next Hallmark, the next Sprint, the next H&R Block, and continue the great tradition of entrepreneurship here in Kansas City.
A co-production of KCPT and Outpost Worldwide. At home in Kansas City. Production, post, content.